course, budget season, and everyone, including the education sector, is wondering what's in it for me. What are the great expectations, but what about the reality check? How much can we expect? Are there going to be any big ticket announcements, any big ticket plans really for education for India's young? That's what we are looking at in this special program on Heads Up. We have also a special panel with Professor Satish Kumar Malhotra of the Amity Business School, also Professor Raj Kumar, the Vice Chancellor of the O.P. Jindal Global University, and Vikas Muscle, partner with KPMG. Thanks all so much for coming in. Professor Raj Kumar, if I could just ask you, there are of course always with a lot of expectations and that any sector has. What are the two areas that you would like to see the government focus its spending on when it comes to education?
Well, let me first say that budget is as much a political document as it is a social document with aspirations. And the new government inevitably has come to power with a commitment to fulfill certain aspirations for young India. Right. With 800 million people less than 35 years of age, clearly that's a sector which ought to have the focus. So if I were to identify two areas, one is that there should be a substantial allocation for faculty development programs across universities in the country, and with a sharper focus on the 40 central universities. If you look at the status of central universities in the country, 40 central universities are suffering from over 35 to 40% of faculty positions lying vacant. Right. Even the IITs and IIMs are also suffering from that. So I would be very keen on a very sort of targeted budgetary allocation for dramatic changes in the faculty development as well as recruitment process. Right. The second is that if you go across our universities, one of the things which you notice is they're all physically crumbling. There is huge impetus for both infrastructure development as well as institution building efforts. There should be, again, we end up building more and more institutions but don't care about the existing institutions. Right. So more than building new IITs and IIMs, we should really focus on how do we improve the capacities of existing institutions. Right. Again, I would welcome a targeted allocation for improving the quality of existing institutions. Right, Professor Malhotra, do you see that? Would you like to add something to that wish list, and do you see it happening really?
You see, education is the most vital area, and we have to find out what is vital, what is essential, and what is desirable. So education comes in the vital area today because of the fact that the World Bank has given the statistics that India up to now is using just 3% of their GDP resources for the education to grow. So therefore, there is a dire need that we have to look into this aspect that at least 6% of the GDP should go for the development of the education sector. And in that, there are two things very, very important which have to be looked into. Where this money has to come and where this money has to go. Of course, that is the revenue and the expenditure people will have to budget it or not. But the very first thing is that we have to go for, number one, quality education. And for that quality is a race without a finish. And we have to continue making effort in that direction. Right. So what is important is not only at the primary level, but at the higher level also. Of course. For example, that there are only for MBBS students, there are just 50,000 seats available, while there are more than 5 to 6 lakh people who are aspiring to become MBBS people. Right. So therefore, Amity University, we have taken a step in this direction that we have written an MOU with the state government for 2,000 crores, and we are going to open. Right, perhaps we need sort of more such initiative. College also, initiative into that. Right, because we're talking about 3%, like Professor Malhotra said, and maybe nothing less than 6% will do. But as someone who sort of knows the numbers and understands those figures better than many of us, how much of this do you believe will stay a pipe dream, and how much can we actually expect?
I think one thing is a wish list, and the other thing is a practical reality. Correct. From macro perspective, I think we should open up the FDI, foreign direct investment, into this sector, and we should clear the hurdles or the policy bottlenecks that are there, so that foreign universities could also look at coming over here. Right. From the micro perspective, from the tax angle, I think certain concessions could be given in order to encourage or help people to foot the bill or provide some tax relief in terms of the education expenses of their children or other relatives.
Right.
Right now, this provision, there is a little tax relief available under Section 80C of the Income Tax Act, but that is cluttered with many other tax reliefs available under that section. So it is not serving its purpose.
Benefit sort of
Absolutely.
greatly, right?
So I think both macro and micro need to be addressed, keeping in view that government has compulsion on the fiscal deficit and huge demand from various other sectors as well.
Right. Professor Rajkumar, when we sort of look at education and we look at the sort of demand and supply, we often find that the supply is really lacking. Are those the kind of sort of initiatives that you're looking at, those kind of reliefs that you're looking at, that you believe will also help the supply side sort of match up? Because, more institutions, quality institutions, of course, we're only looking at quality institutions. I don't just mean the number, but quality institutions, therefore, coming up.
Absolutely. In fact, a huge investment is needed, and I do have a slight view in the sense that we should not look at education from the standpoint of just comparing it with infrastructure and other sectors, because in some ways investing in education is about investing for our future. Possibly it has impact on other sectors as well. So if you are able to educate the young people of India, you have an opportunity to build a knowledge-based society. And today, if you look at many other developing countries, there is a systematic and a substantial effort to bolster the educational system.
If I just may take the liberty of interrupting you there. I've heard this spoken in the past. We were all in agreement, all top educationists, all top sort of movers and shakers, as it were, also in agreement that this is the way forward. This is how countries who our global peers have cracked it, and we have to do this. But somehow we can't seem to translate it into action.
Well, that's the political reality of it, and I think it seems to me that the government is serious about seeing a change in the education sector. There is the kind of noises that are being made at the early stage of this government seems to move in the direction. But having said that, it's not just about putting more money. It's also about targeting as to where you want to spend. Government doesn't have enough money.
Of course.
There is a committee report, no less than Narayana Murthy headed that committee, set up the planning commission 2-3 years back. They submitted a report, and one of the major recommendations of the report is to how do we significantly incentivize corporate philanthropy and private sector education into the context. And it has proposed a 300% tax deduction for investments from the private sector into education through philanthropic basis. It has also proposed a 1,000 crore scholarship fund. I think we are at that stage where we need to start thinking big, because if we get this right, we are in a position to address many other challenges which are critical for the future of our country.
Right. That proposal, Vikas, of course, sounds gigantic considering where we are at present. Do you believe that we'll even get half of that ever going? Where do you believe we stand actually in the scheme of things?
I think before we come to the tax proposals, I would like to highlight that the new Companies Act which has been introduced, wherein 2% of the net profits have been made mandatory to be given for corporate social responsibility, CSR activities. Education forms an integral part of that list. So I think that will also give boost to the philanthropy towards the education sector. Like healthcare, education is a sector which requires a lot of long-term gestation period before it actually starts yielding results or it starts yielding some money in order to flow back. Investment-related tax incentives are better than just the profit-linked or other incentives, because that pushes investment in a particular sector in which the government desires.
Right. Professor Malhotra, just changing track a little bit. When we talk about the role of private players, and there's no denying that they've played an enormous role in education, particularly higher education in the country. But what from the perspective of a private player in education is are some of the most frustrating things when it comes to setting up shop in India?
No, you see, the public-private partnership has to come up because the resources have to be pooled. Number two, there has to be the existence of single window clearance. What is happening today is that the things which have been allocated also are not reaching in time, and with that, a lot of frustration comes into being. Third very important thing which we have to look into is, which is very important in today, that off-profit business schools should come. For-profit business schools should come. So that
though our rules on that are still sort of
so that the foreign players also, if they are for-profit, they are investing. And with that investment, with the infrastructure and into the education sector, it will bring that result.
Right.
Next important thing is that for the vocational training, very important thing is that we continue doing our effort, not only for the rote learnings in our business schools, but we'll have to go for the vocational training so that people can get right from the beginning the kind of environment in which the growth can come.
Right.
So we are looking into that perspective.
Right. Of course, vocational training and skills training being very important, and skills has been sort of in big focus. But coming back to what you said about letting foreign players come in, the whole role of profit. How do you sort of see this?
I'm personally opposed to the idea of for-profit institutions. I don't know of a single university anywhere in the world which is a good university and is for-profit. So I'm opposed to for-profit universities and education institutions. However, we need to make a distinction between incentivizing initiatives with the view to significant private sector investment, and that's the idea of corporate philanthropy as well as contributing to other forms of incentives and concessions. The second aspect is that we are also mistaking the point about foreign players coming in. I don't believe that entry of foreign universities is going to dramatically change the Indian context. I strongly believe that we need to have foreign institutions and universities coming into India. We need to create an environment where Indian universities and institutions are competing with other universities. It also provides an opportunity for us to challenge ourselves.
The entry of
No, I'm absolutely for it.
Yeah.
But we should not misunderstand between entry of
this
foreign
institutions
is actually going to be a game changer for Indian institutions. Secondly, it should be for profit. Again, the leading universities, Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Michigan, you name the private universities, they're all non-profit universities.
I'm going to get Professor Malhotra to quickly respond
so
to that.
On this particular thing, which I'm trying to, once again say, that in all big countries and in China, they have gone for the for-profit educational institutions. It is not only, you see, the West is aging while India is young. And in this young economy now, we have to understand that today, this is the need of the hour. Because infrastructure funding, from where it will come? Because if for-profit organizations are there, they will be able to bring. Because they are then having some motivation to come and bring that. And it all in BRIC countries, as well as in China also, they have come up with this kind of a situation.
That's, of course, a very important point. Is that the big reason, or one of the big reasons why we seem to be falling behind? Well, we're going to be slipping into a quick break now. Back with more as we discuss what education needs and, of course, the road ahead and the big ticket announcements, if any, that we can expect from the education sector. Like Vikas pointed out, every sector perhaps now looking at what the finance minister is going to have to say with a lot of intensity. We're slipping into a quick break. Back with more.